Hello out there. This is Pamela Fagan Hutchins, and you have found me on Wine, Women, and Writing. This is the show, podcast, video cast. If there was another cast, I'm sure we'd do it, that goes out to 156 countries and showcases female writers and their great female characters. Occasionally, I will delve into the other gender, but we call that Mescal Men and Mystery. So today we're here for a Wine, Women, and Writing. I am excited to have you here. I want to make sure that everybody knows that if you want to see past episodes or you want to find out any more information about the show, my books, or read ahead, see the shows that are coming up and read the books before I talk to the authors, you can find that at PamelaFaganHutchins.com, where you can also find my newest release, which is Snaggletooth. And I've got this limited edition box set out right now with 6 books in it. You better snap that up fast because I'm only going to let it run for 6 months. And then we've got Stag Party coming September 1st. Pre-orders are up for Sitting Duck and for Seeking Felicity. That's from 2 different series. Last thing I have to say before we get to the fun part, this is a solely owned and copyrighted production of Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. All hail Pam Stack, our producer. She is pretty awesome. Speaking of awesome, though, today I have a guest whose name I'm going to pronounce correctly, even though I can't say correctly. Mary Keliikoa. I knew I would do it, Mary. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Pamela.
We even practiced ahead of time, but it's still, I'm insufficiently caffeinated for doing anything that I have to enunciate. So I am based out in Wyoming, and Mary is even further west. You're coming to us from where, Mary?
I'm from Vancouver, Washington, which is right across the border from Portland, Oregon. So I'm close to Oregon.
Nice. That's probably, is it beautiful right now? Is this a great weather season for you? It'd been hot.
Yes. Well, we're blessed with, nice warm days. Like I think today will be 90, which is a little hot, but it'll cool down to 60 for the night. So it's perfect.
It chases the heat away. That's how we are here. It's just you wake up and you're like, beautiful.
Yeah. It's not quite hot if I can sleep at night.
Now you write a series that's also based very close to where you live, right? Your series is based where?
Portland, Oregon.
Portland. And tell us a little bit about the series before we dive into just the particular book that I read for the show.
Yeah, so it features PI Kelly Pruett, and she is a single mom to a deaf daughter, and she has inherited her father's detective agency. She grew up in the agency, but he protected her a lot. And so the series really follows Kelly and her striving to be her own detective and to be a good mom and to solve the cases and step out on her own. So that's the premise of the whole series.
And I'll tell you guys, it was a lot of fun. You'll hear me talk about this more as we go through the interview. But before we dive into the book, I wanted to get Kelly to talk about I'm going to call you by Kelly Pruett now. Mary, to talk about some of the accolades for this series, if it doesn't embarrass her too much, because she's just really, you've hit it out of the park on just a series that's only 2 books long.
Yes. Yeah. So my first book was out last year, Derailed, and it has been nominated for a Lefty, an Agatha Award, an Anthony Award, and it's a Seamus finalist for Best First PI Novel. So it's been very humbling. Like, who would know? Who knew? And, I could dream about those things, but who knew it was going to happen? So I've been very excited that it's been nominated.
Well, congratulations on how successful it's been. It's very deserved, and I hope that it continues to rack up the accolades for you. The entry of this series into your life, what caused you to suddenly become the writer of the Kelly Pruett series? And I say suddenly, for most authors, it's really not as sudden as it feels to the rest of the world.
Well, so I started writing when I was 27, and I'll be 56 on Monday. So, I've been writing for a little while. But I wrote the Kelly Pruett series actually when I was 35, and she was the last book. I was a Sue Grafton fan, which is why I wanted to write PI novel in the first place. And I was going through a part of my life where I was, a stepmother. I was, learning to be a stepmother with 2 daughters, and I was trying to start my own career. I was starting my own company. And so we aligned a little bit, Kelly and I, because Kelly's trying to step out on her own. She's in her 30s. So that was what started that whole thing. Now I came back to the book, obviously, 15, 16 years later to edit it and get it to where it is today and be derailed that's out on the market. But I wrote that book, 16, well, actually almost 20 years ago now when I was 35. So
I'm so glad I asked this question, because as I was reading it and having compared it to your bio, I was wondering, it did not feel like very much of it was currently derived from your life other than location. But as I looked and saw that your background is, I think, a legal secretary at one point. So you have a strong interest in the legal field. You mentioned Sue Grafton. And now to hear the age at which you wrote it, it's starting to feel a lot more like most of the authors of mystery series that I talk to. You'll find something that came straight from their heart and their experiences about their books. And I think we may have honed in on it right here in the first 5 minutes.
We did.
Well, I'm a Sue Grafton fan too. And actually, I'm a Sue Grafton fan, but I was an even bigger Marcia Mueller fan. I don't know if you read her books. They are actually set in Northern California, and she's got a new one coming out, and I've got her on the show next week, and I'm like freaking out with excitement because she's of that Sue Grafton genre, the V.I. Borshowski novels, all of those great female PI novels that were out in the 80s, 90s, Marcia Mueller's in that club. So I had to throw that in case you were a fan. I'm super excited.
I have not. I will find her, though, as soon as we're done.
Yeah, and start with, I think it's called Edward of the Iron Shoes or something like that, or Pennies Over a Dead Man's Eyes. There's some really great titles. Anyway, Marcia Mueller, Sharon McCone Mysteries. And that's next week's show. So now we're going to talk about the Kelly Pruett mysteries. So one of the things that I loved about Kelly in Denied, which is the second book, and was how I came to know Mary, was because of the release of her second book, was that Kelly is the owner of a crack assistant that goes everywhere with her on her cases. And we were talking about this crack assistant earlier. You want to tell us about her sidekick?
Yes, well, that would be Floyd. Floyd is her basset hound. And in book 1, he hangs out with her a lot. In book 2, he actually has a little bit of a part to play. So I made him work a little bit more than his normal hanging out on the passenger side seat, But I'm a dog lover. I'm actually what I do for a living is I'm in the pet industry. So, I get to be around dogs. And so it was just normal and natural to have a dog in with Kelly.
Almost impossible not to.
Exactly.
Well, I did read a little bit about some of that pet industry stuff. Boy, am I having trouble today. Pet industry stuff when I was stalking Mary, which is what I do before these shows. I go around and look and see, is there anything I can find that's not in their bios out there? And so I kind of fell a little bit in love with her. She had me that works in pet industry. Yes. And another thing that I loved about the books, because I'm always looking for depth of character, what's going on that carries a reader from story to story with your lead, with your female lead, and her complicated relationship with her deceased father was wonderful. So how was that always a part of the books from when you first wrote them? This love, hate, hero worship, want to kill you, kind of thing going on?
Isn't that kind of normal in just life?
Yes.
Yeah, it's very complicated. Yeah, it is. It's right from the very beginning. She inherits her dad's agency right from the book 1, right? And she immediately finds out that she doesn't know him on a lot of levels. And I think that was real biographical for me because my dad was older. And so I didn't really know him on the level that I think parents know their kids these days. I had a generation of parent. And so there was not that connection. And that's the impetus of the whole series as well. Just that relationship of finding out who he was and really finding out the secrets that he kept in order to protect her, but they didn't really protect her in the end. And so kind of the theme is that sometimes what we think we're doing to protect and love isn't always so much. It's setting people up to fail or be in danger because we didn't tell them quite enough.
You need to trust them, especially trust our grown children to grow up and be trustworthy. I think that, to me, it's a fun and interesting thing that she's discovering herself as she discovers her dad. The similarities and the differences and the nuances of what you thought was bad isn't so bad, maybe, that sometimes moral ambiguity is a place we all have to live in and do our best. And there's just for me, that made Kelly really interesting. I think that was what I loved most about her in the book. So if you guys are into discovering the depths of parents and relationships, etc., that part will really appeal to you in these books. With her dad having died young, did you lose a parent young too, or?
Yeah, my dad died at 20 when I was 27.
Okay, so you really can relate to. It felt very real to me, without pushing you into something sad and making us cry. Yeah, but it felt very real. And so, you know.
Yeah, you know, and it's just that I think she's just striving to make him proud, and that's just her thing. That's just going to be. That's what Kelly's trying for. But, you know, book 2, Denied, really brought that home too, because the theme or the plot of that book is she's trying to find a missing father, right? And so that was the reason I wrote that as the plot, was really to push Kelly further into her own stuff with her father.
And a father that throughout the book, you're struggling to determine whether or not he's worth the effort, right? Worth Kelly's effort, whether it's going to break the heart of the person that's hired her, you know, et cetera. And so it's a very good mystery. It's a great whodunit, but you kept that so alive and so integral. And that's what keeps me reading, you know, is a character that I'm really interested in. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. You know, every author is like, you know, everybody was like, oh, I'm so glad you liked Kelly, you know, and could connect with her. That's just like, that's the end all, right?
Exactly. And, you know, when you write series mysteries, it really is it's the end all, because if someone doesn't fall in love with your character, they're not going to keep going in the series. And I think you guys out there, you know, my audience, hello, everybody, are people that primarily read mystery, suspense, thriller, that enjoy female writers, female protagonists. And I flatter myself to say, take my recommendations. So anyway, I think you guys will really like Kelly. I also think that I tend to, speaking to you guys, I tend to have an audience that doesn't like gratuitous sex and cursing, and you're going to be just fine with the Kelly Pruett books. She's a modern woman. She's not hiding in a monastery, but she's not she's not pole dancing in your face. You know?
I come from a very conservative family, you know, and I don't really, I don't know. So, there's a place for it in books, but you know, this is mystery and we're solving a crime and we don't have time for all that stuff sometimes.
That's right. There's a romantic element, and you know that they're all adults, but that's not what we focus on. So when I had living grandmothers, I would always give my books to them first. And I was consciously thinking, did I include anything in there that's going to get me in trouble? And I've discovered as an author that a lot of readers, people that really have time to read, are not the people that are younger and enmeshed in pop culture and are real comfortable with all of that necessarily, because those people don't have time to read. They're in a different part of their lives. So anyway, I have to throw that in because I've gotten in trouble before when I've recommended books and it was like F-bomb, F-bomb, F-bomb.
Well, my mom is 95. And so if my mom can read it just fine, she's fine with it. You know, I keep that in mind. My mother is going to read this book. And my words, not call me up and want at me.
Exactly. So with this book, there's as I said, there's romantic elements to it, but there's also a strong parental element, that she's got this daughter who is the light of her life and shares custody with dad. And so she's constantly struggling. Am I a good enough mother as well? Which I think we all go through, no matter whether we're single or married or have one kid or 10, or if our kid is a dog, we all go through that struggle. So that was very relatable to me as well.
Yeah, she wants to be a strong role model. I think that's the everything challenge for a woman, right? Is that you don't want to check your dreams and desires at the door just because you have a child, and yet you want to give that child everything they need, right? So it's a balance, right? So that you're living your best life and their best life is coming together. And it's a real struggle for Kelly because she did not grow up with the best, her mother dies at 14 and her dad raised her. So it's not like it was a lot of nurture, nurture, nurture. She's like on her own, and that's her role model, so.
Right. And she's getting some pressure from other people in her child's life that possibly her profession isn't the one she should have chosen as a mother. So it's very complicated for her as a woman who's trying, like you said, to be a role model and at the same time have that wonderful relationship, and not just quality time, but quantity time, all these different things that come into play from women. Am I doing this? Am I doing that? Am I enough of this? Am I enough of that? She's right in the thick of it. I know that for me as a mom, that balance was always extremely challenging. I was at the time working corporate job as a lawyer, and it was constant beating yourself up, that you and we need to be nicer to ourselves. So I in the book, I found myself thinking to Kelly, I wish some people would just cut her some slack. She's doing a great job.
Especially that ex-mother-in-law of hers.
No, I try really hard not to do spoilers. Ex-mother-in-law, even her ex-husband to a certain extent, but really that ex-mother-in-law who also in the book, there's a nice relationship unfolding, there as well, a good and bad side to everybody. So
there's not just one side to anybody, right?
Exactly. And lots of great depth of character. So now, with respect to Kelly, we have Derailed. And by the way, if you are watching this via video, you can see beautiful covers of her books in the background. Your covers are lovely. We have Derailed and Denied behind Mary's head. Keliikoa. It just came to me that I had to try again. Keliikoa. Close. I'm so bad. I'm not good at pronunciation. Anywho, what's next for Kelly?
Deceived is actually what's coming up for her. That will be the third book in the series. It'll be out next May 2022. Kelly will be going undercover in a women's shelter. And so it's a little bit different. She's feeling a little more secure as a PI. She's, taking a little more help perhaps than she's had before. Next door might be an unexpected guest who has moved in. It's going to be a lot of fun. I enjoyed writing it. It was the hardest book of the series to write because there's so many working parts, but I think people are going to enjoy Kelly in this one.
I love that you have her undercover in a situation where she can explore women that in a shelter. I'm assuming that we have issues of women and children having run and been abused and facing all kinds of terrible, tough stuff. Instead of most of the books you read, the woman that goes undercover and she's suddenly wearing 2 threads of clothing over her body and they're both spandex and she's walking the streets, which is also very real women's issues and very real and difficult. But this is a whole different immersion of putting on a new identity. And I like this one. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that one already. Do you see yourself writing outside this series, or for right now, does Kelly have all your love?
Well, actually, no, I do see myself. Sorry. Yes. So next year in September 2022, I actually sold a 2-book series to Level Best Books, and it will be featuring a Portland homicide detective turned small town sheriff in Misty Pines, which is a coastal town, which is where I grew up. I grew up at the Oregon coast, and he is remnants of an old case show themselves when a 14-year-old missing girl appears to have been abducted or run away. We don't know yet. And so it's going to be a different picture because I have a male lead coming in.
Okay, so girl, we need to talk. So I've been writing all female protagonist mysteries for years, and then about 2 years ago, I started writing a male protagonist mystery, and it was really a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
I love that. I love you, testing your chops and doing something completely different point of view wise at the same time as it'll be fun because you'll keep your mystery readers. So is this a fictional small town?
It is. Well, so I grew up in Oregon coast, like Cannon Beach, Seaside, or, that area. So, but I wanted creative license. So Misty Pines is a compilation of several towns right along that Oregon coast. But when I was a kid, before the Corps of Engineers took over, I could run around in the batteries and, like all the things that would give you tetanus now. Running all around those things. And so they're kind of backdrops. And the Oregon coast is such a, atmospheric place. And so it's a great place for a mystery. So,
oh, and Misty Pines, what a great name. Okay, it's bringing to mind, there was a show, a thriller suspense show. Oh, it was really freaky, weird. It may not have been set in Oregon, but had the most atmospheric name back in the 90s. I'm going to think of it and email you because it's immediately that feel of that name has brought that back to me. So everyone out there is going, what the heck are you talking about? I really have no idea. I have no idea what I'm talking about.
It's a fun series, though. It's a fun book series, and the first book really deals with codependence, which is of a character. So it's got a lot of depth to it. So I'm excited for it. So
yeah, I am too. Now you've really got me intrigued because I'm a Kelly fan. I love Kelly, but atmospheric, coastal, small town mystery. You're really starting to sing my song now of what I want to read. So hurry. Well, you guys, I hope that you've been intrigued by Mary. Oh, gee, many Christmas. Mary, here I go.
Keliikoa.
I mean, I looked at it and I'm like, I'm completely blank. Keliikoa. But you know what? I just realized Kelly Pruett, Keliikoa, your last name. Ah, very cool. So anyway, I hope you're really much better at saying her name than I am on camera and under pressure, and that you'll go check out Derailed and Denied, her Kelly Pruett books. Deceived is coming out next May. Deceived, I guess I got that right. At least I got one thing right. And then her new series next fall. So very cool. And for those of you that want to get out there and read the book for the upcoming show next week, I have Marsha Mueller coming on, her new book, Fire and Ice. You can also get my books from my website, which is PamelaFaganHutchins.com, in any format you want. So just knock yourself out. And I will expect to see you here next week when we talk to Marsha. And it will be easier for me because I know how to say her last name. But I still loved talking to Mary. And Mary, thank you so much for being here and putting up with my inability.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been fun.
It was fun. And you guys, see you next week.
Aloha.